Hey everybody, this is Jason. Before we present the episode, which is our interview with Buonocore of Stronghold Games, we wanted to give you a bit of a public service announcement. I'm here in editing, listening back to the episode. We love it. We're really proud of it. We had a lot of laughs with Steven. However, I wanted to be mindful of tone. I think we may have hit a bit of a promotional tone, especially with the first half of the episode. That was intentional since, after all, Steven's a publisher and he's here to promote his games. But I also think our audience has come to expect a little bit of a different tone on the ENGN show, at least the main one, more analytical, more critical of the games we review. I stand by all the opinions expressed about the games I chose to review in this episode. I really liked them all. We picked them all on purpose. But I definitely wanted to be mindful of the tone and give everybody a heads up so they know what they're listening to. And please stay tuned for the back half of the episode because we really have a lot of fun talking about all sorts of random stuff. We talk about Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and all sorts of geeky stuff. As always, we hope you enjoy the conversation. On to the show.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 75, our interview with Steven Buonocore. Hey everybody, welcome back to Every Night is Game Night. This is episode 75, and with you once again is Anthony and Jason.
Yo, my peoples, what's up?
All right, and as you heard at the top of the episode, we have a very special guest with us this week, the founder of Stronghold Games, Steven Buonocore himself. Welcome, sir.
Guys, how are you? It is great to be here. I'm so happy you got me on.
It is awesome. Great to be blessed by the Podfather. Finally, we are a podcast. Oh my goodness. It's only taken us 75 episodes to be blessed.
Oh, that's. I would have been on any time. It's just that you just asked me recently. So I'm really glad to be here. Oh, and this is like sort of actually really good that I'm getting on this one too. And you told me Ignacy was just on, right?
Yes, he was a couple episodes ago.
And we do in our podcast, Board Games Insider.
That's correct.
We do a annual predictions episode, and one of Ignacy's predictions was I would be on that he would be able to name 5 podcasts that I was not on, ever. So I've checked this one off the list. So I don't think he's going to be able to do it because I'm trying to be on every one of them. So glad I got to this one too.
That was the impetus beyond you being on the call now. When I heard that you met the prediction show, I'm like, nope, we're not letting Ignacy get away with it.
Oh, is that true? Is that actually true?
It's true.
Oh, great. That is funny. Perfect
It's
timing.
Totally true. Other than that, you released some pretty good games and you have some good games coming up. So we figured why not? It all comes together.
Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. So we are going to get to some of those good games. Don't want to take up too much of your time in sunny, beautiful Florida. So relaxing by the poolside over there, which I'm sure you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. But it is like in the 80s here, which is absolutely fantastic compared to like in the 20s back in New Jersey. And speaking of Florida.
Which is where I'm recording this podcast from, by the way.
Oh, you guys are in New Jersey?
Tri-state area.
Oh, okay. But speaking of, now in Florida, so, today, February 12th is when we're recording that. I hope it's okay for me to say. We had a press release that came out this morning. And what we did in the press release, we unveiled the fact that we're in this new location in Florida. We have new staff members on board, Stronghold Games, and a new logo. So, it's big, successful year 2017. We needed to celebrate that in a really big way by bringing on some new people to help me because I really need help, and also with the new location and having this new logo kind of to commemorate the entire thing. So it's been certainly a great run for Stronghold, and I think it's going to hopefully continue into the future.
All right, congratulations, man!
Thank you.
Always nice to add staff and delegate.
Yeah,
some much needed help, I'm sure.
Much needed help. Let's put it that way.
All right. So we're gonna do 2 things with this podcast. One, we're gonna kind of go through the run of Stronghold Games. You do have a lot of games that are of interest to our audience, so we wanted to have you on just to kind of talk about them. And I'll give my reviews of a couple of the games that have come out that I've played, and then some other ones that I think people are looking forward to. And then for the second one, we're going to go in a different direction. So I'm going to hold that off. Let's talk to Buonocore, the publisher. So put on your tie, put on your best self face, the face that we see at a convention, and let's talk Stronghold Games.
Sounds good.
All right. So the first one I had a chance to play. This is actually one of my favorite games, maybe like top 15 or so, which is for me pretty good in the last couple years. Not Alone. So Not Alone came out a couple of years ago. We have not reviewed it on a podcast yet, so I'll run through it really fast. It is a one-verse minigame set in a sci-fi universe. One player is the alien that is hunting the rest of the people who are stranded on an island, and they have to escape. So mechanically, it's kind of this hide-and-seek game that's played out on a tableau of cards. So like each of the 10 cards represents a world. And every round, the hunter is trying to guess where the aliens or where the humans are. And the humans have to like go to the different places, go to the different cards, activate powers, get, power-ups and try to just basically evade. So it's a very kind of mental, guess where I am. And okay, you were here, so you can't be here. Not going to go into the whole details of exploration, but that's kind of the basic flow of the game. What I got a chance to play was Exploration, the expansion, which adds more cards.
Absolutely.
So tell me, actually, you're big into these like mental games, right?
I'm really a big fan of social deduction, which this is not exactly. This is like you said, kind of like more like hidden movement, right? But I'm definitely a big fan of these games where the psychology of the gamer themselves, of the gamers themselves, comes into play. And a game like this where you're trying, which is like poker, right? If you think about it, right? Poker is kind of that kind of game, right? And I'm a big fan of poker. And you're trying to read people and get into their heads and see, well, if they do that, I can do this. But I know that they know that you can do this, so I'm going to do this. And it's this whole like, one-upsmanship and cat and mouse on where you're going to go. And it is absolutely, at the moment in my catalog, my favorite game in my entire catalog of like 100 games and expansions.
It's not. You're just saying that because we're talking about it.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, I'm into this. Like I said, this whole social. I'm really a social gamer. And Dark Moon. Well, it was Panic Station at one point, and then it was Dark Moon. But Not Alone. We came out with it last year. It came out at Essen. The year before last, and like Essen 2016, we picked up the license. So we brought it out in the middle of last year, and we've been playing the crap out of it. And it's just exactly the kind of game that I like to relax because it's a 45-minute game, and it's a kind of a creepy feeling if you're playing those astronauts and they crash land and you're trying to capture you're trying to suck their will away as the creature. And of course, I love playing the creature, that evil, maligned entity who's on that planet trying to get you. So it's so much my style of game.
What I liked about it, I really like the game. Not a solo game, but I think it's a kind of a one versus many, which is in the cooperative genre, which we also cover.
Sure.
So I like that you can play it 2-player and you can play it 7-player, and you can play it anywhere in between. So the Not Alone Exploration expansion adds the more cards, adds the more spaces. That's all it does. Like, it adds more powers, it adds more locations that you can go to. The thing that I liked about it the most was that now it's a little bit easier to kind of mix and match depending on player count. So like if some of the areas work better at low player counts, some would work better at higher, some of the powers work better at low and high. I think now you can kind of like tune it where it's like a little bit more flexible in terms of that stuff, along with just, mixing up gameplay. And, that one definitely gets a big thumbs up for me. I think both of them are going to get big thumbs up for me because I'm not going to actually talk about the one that I think are bad, but you're right there.
Thank you.
I'll save that for another podcast. But no, this one is amazing. I really, really recommend this. So Not Alone. And it is Mr. Buonocore's favorite, which I did not know coming in.
Yeah, of my catalog, yes.
Of your catalog. Okay, so the second one I wanted to talk about before we get to the newer releases is The Pursuit of Happiness. Another one of my favorites. We actually reviewed this on episode 10. So a long time ago. Really one of my, I really like this game. So this game is a Euro take on the game of life. That's kind of the pithy way of saying it. It's a worker placement game. Each player gets these pieces that are like time pieces, and you put your piece on a certain spots and you do life stuff. You buy items, you go on vacation, you learn to cook, you have all these different cards, and you get these cards and really it's, in the essence, it's like this really kind of simple worker placement game. You place a thing, you get a thing, you change a thing for more things, you change the more things into points. But it allows you to tell the story. So like at the beginning, you don't have a lot of money. You have a crappy little job. You can only do a couple of projects. In middle age, you have more projects. You've now learned to cook. You've now done this. You've now like bought your yacht, or you improved your little dinky boat to a yacht. The expansion adds pets. The pets can grow up and die, which I think is a cute thing. So I really, really like the game. The community expansion adds a new board, and it adds a new set of cards called these community cards, which basically they work like group projects. Only there's a separate little mechanism where you have to spend another different resource called popularity. So you have different resources like creativity, and so this one adds a fourth resource, popularity. And now you can't only go as many spots as you have popularity. So it's a project. So like if you want to do all these community projects, you want to get all these resources because they're really good cards. They give you a lot of resources, but you can't go if you're not popular. Like you can't go to the gala, go to the ball game, go to these other places unless you are more popular, which is kind of like a parallel to life, right? You're not going to get invited to these things.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you're popular. So this particular one, I think it was, a little bit of a sidestep, like it adds more. I don't know if it added as much as like a Not Alone adds to the base game, but it does help you tell the story more. And I think like when I see you talk about it in the forums, you're talking about the story it tells, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way of putting it. The whole idea of the pursuit of happiness, like sort of the subtitle for the game is like, live the life you've always wanted to. So, you create in the game, you create the story of your life, and you can take different paths than you took here. You can have a relationship. You can have two relationships, but that adds stress to your life. You can go to college, not go to college. Other people call it like the game of life done right. The old game of life with the silly spinner and all that. So it really does just tell that really, really nice story, but with really mature, like, Euro type mechanics. So it's not a random game fest, as in lots of the storytelling games sometimes tend to be. Some of those adventure type games, they kind of be very random. This is really modern Euro mechanics, but where you're choosing the path of your life story. And the community expansion just adds a little more flavor to that. Now it's how you're interacting with the community around you. And that's one little piece that wasn't there before. Now you have it in the game. So, and I want to make mention, it actually has not been officially released yet. It's March 7th, not February 7th. So I'm not sure when the podcast is coming out, but it'll be within the next week or so probably after this podcast drops. It's still on pre-order on the Stronghold Games website. If you want it before anybody else sees it, you can have it there. I don't know how you got your copy. Very good. Maybe you got it from me. There you go.
I backed it on
you
Kickstarter.
You got it from Artibia. That's right. That's cool.
That's right. Oh no, it's one of the auto backs for me. I really like. I'm a guy that loves theme. Like Anthony's our strategic gamer over there. We're gonna get to some stuff for Anthony's palette in just a second. I'm the thematic gamer, and this game, like if it marries theme and mechanisms, oh man, I'm there. So sorry, man. had to back it right away day one. That was automatic for me, and it did not disappoint. Like I said, I mean, I think if you're looking at the game, it isn't necessary because there's things that kind of simulate like group actions. But if you're interested in telling like a fuller story, then then go for it. I really like it. I'm gonna play when I play Pursuit of Happiness. It'll be with that. So that's the community expansion. That's my thematic stuff. Here comes some strategery, which is, I think, Stronghold. Stronghold is known for like kind of the being on the strategic end of things. You have two releases that are going to hit in Q1, which are pretty big. I figured you can tell us a little bit about both of them. The first one is Indian Summer, another Uwe game.
Yeah, absolutely. So we created a partnership with a small but really growing and influential company out in Germany called Edition Spielwiese, and just a small group of guys, and they've already established themselves by having some great games with some amazing designers. And the Indian Summer is a follow-up game. It's an Uwe Rosenberg game, as you mentioned, and it's a follow-up game to Cottage Garden, which we picked up first. That was our first game that we picked up with Edition Spielwiese. And it's an Uwe Rosenberg puzzle game where you're picking up these Tetris-like pieces to put them on your board to create the perfect, most beautiful cottage garden. And that was a very light, easygoing game. It was an outgrowth of something he did a couple of years before that called Patchwork, which people loved. That was a two-player only game in Cottage Garden, and now in Indian Summer, they're multiplayer, 2 to 4 players, actually 1 to 4 players. I believe they can both be played with one player, or at least Indian Summer can. They are a little bit bigger games and certainly more beautiful in their implementation. The artwork that the Edition Spiel Visa guys are doing is just amazing. This is the second one, Indian Summer, in the trilogy. It's called the Uwe Rosenberg Puzzle Trilogy. The second one, and there'll be a third one, which I can't talk about because we're not even sure what the name is yet. But that'll be coming out for Essen this year as well.
Okay, so you coordinated the releases for Essen.
Yes,
the third one is coming at Essen.
Third one for Essen. So Indian Summer has just been released. That came out on January 31st, and it is doing really well already. The reception to it has been fantastic because, I mean, it's an Uwe game, so immediately people want to jump on those games. And I spoke to Uwe at Essen this past year, and he said that he's basically just scratching the surface with what he thinks these puzzle games can do. He showed me a couple of other things that are going to be done with this entire idea of, using puzzle pieces, that Tetris-like pieces, to create these various ways of implementing mechanics on top of that.
And Anthony is our big polyomino guy, so we're going to go. Anthony, we're going to set you up with that one whenever that gets here. You get to play with the leaves.
Yes. I love my little puzzle pieces.
Awesome.
Leaves and pretty animals in that one. Trying to fill your the floor of your forest with all the beautiful leaves of the Indian Summer, like of the New England Indian Summer.
Cool. So the last one we're going to talk about is Noria. So Noria is kind of your big release for Q1, right?
Noria is a huge release on many levels. First of all, it's a big game. It's a $79.95 game. So it's one of the higher end price point games that we've done. It is a really interesting, different game. The backstory to this game is really cool. So the designer, Sophia Wagner, out of Germany, she won the Spiel des Jahres Fellowship in 2015. And this is given to new designers. They submit designs to the Spiel des Jahres committee, and then they review all those designs, and they pick a winner. The best young designer is what it comes. So not only do we have something by the best young designer of 2015, but it's also a woman, and that's really a great thing because we really all need to promote diversity in the industry. So that's just a great thing. Having a female designer, brand new, great design, and a heavy game to boot. Not something light and fluffy at all. This is a pretty meaty game. We call it wheel building, or she called it wheel building in her pitch to us. By the way, she not only created the game and the idea of the wheel building and all those mechanics, with some tweaks from development in Germany, but she created this whole backstory of Noria, sort of a steampunk sci-fi world. Read about it, what she's done, because it's really kind of a cool storyline that she put in there. But in this game, it's an economic game. You're building an economic engine, and you're going to be going out to create the economies of your part of the world of Noria, and you'll be picking up these action discs in various ways and putting them on your wheels. This is a 3-dimensional piece that's in front of each player, 2 to 4 players, and you put them on your wheel, and then you're going to take actions based on the discs that you place on your wheel. There are various colored discs that give you different actions, and you will manipulate the wheel, turn it around to line up the discs to then take those actions. Really just different, interesting way of implementing like an action selection on these 3-dimensional wheels. So something that we're calling it wheel building, a new genre. I don't know that this is going to take off, deck building or something, but I think that people are going to kind of look at this 3-dimensional aspect, and if nothing else, they're going to think that this game, with the artwork by Michael Menzel and the way that the 3-dimensional game is implemented, they're going to really be enamored with the entire thing. And one more thing about the other reviewers that have looked at this. we immediately send this over to Mandy and Suze of the Dice Tower, of course, specifically because, it's a new female designer. And they have been going crazy on this, not, of course, only because it's a female designer. That obviously is a big plus for them. But they are just going ape on this game right now because they're constantly tweeting their photos of them playing the games and stuff like that because they're just loving it. So it's got some buzz going into its release, which is on March 21st of this year.
Cool. So so I do have to ask you a little bit of a question here because I saw Tom Rassel's review of this game and he noticed that there isn't a ton of interaction, like I guess player-to-player interaction. It's like I can reach into your wheel and steal stuff out of it or whatever it is. It's a real kind of engine building game. Is this a game that's ripe for solo if the kind of design wheels went in that direction?
Well, there are solo rules that have been already put out for the game. We Sofia and the German development team got together and they did create a solo variant for the game. So yeah, you'll be able to play this. And we're really keen these days on doing solo games, putting games out that have the ability for players to play them solo. Because as gamers, we want to use every bit of our time gaming, but very often you gotta be home with the kids and this, put them to bed and you can't go out. So hey, boom, pull out a game and try to beat your last score or beat the conditions that the solo game that has for you. Terraforming Mars, our very tremendous release, has built-in solo play, and people have been playing the crap out of that game in solo mode, such that then they take the skills that they're learning in solo mode and bring back to defeat their opponents too. So there's a lot of buzz about solo gaming. I'm not personally one of them. I'm not that. In my when I'm not gaming with players, and I'm a very social guy, as I mentioned. When I'm not gaming with other people, I have some other interests that I like beer, for instance. No, I mean that's one of them. But like geek TV shows and things like that I really get into. So I'll save the solo gaming for those who really 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 like that.
Like us.
Yeah, like you guys.
Like go. Busy guys like us, busy dads. Well, good. Actually, I did want to ask a question about that because this was actually pretty recent where this was a thread on the game Jump Drive, which is the Race for the Galaxy variant. And Tom Lehman was mentioning how, he wanted a solo mode for that game, but he got some pushback from his publisher. And I know that was a thing kind of in the past, especially, a couple years ago. It's like solo mode. Who plays the game solo? I don't know from your publisher's perspective. I mean, do you notice a shift where maybe a couple of years ago it would have been encountered high resistance and now it's a little bit more accepted, or I don't know, where do you think we are with that?
I never knew that or noticed that there was a resistance to creating solo mode. I never noticed it. Again, I'm not a solo gamer, but I never noticed that there was a resistance to doing it. It was like, if it's possible, hey, if it's possible, every game should play from 1 to 99. I mean, that would be, of course, because then you can just do anything. Games simply have their component limited, or they're limited in the physical nature. They're limited in different ways on the top end, and then on the bottom end, some just can't get down. You can't make them solo. But now there is just a very big call for solo mode. So I am really happy when we can bring out a game that has that mode of play. So I don't know. I don't remember there being a discouraged. I mean, I don't remember because I just didn't see that about Jump Drive that they were discouraging solo mode. But I think it's certainly very, very big these days.
Mm-hmm. So Noria plays 1 to 4. You think you need to change that on the BGG listing?
Well, we'll do that then.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Okay, so that was the tour of Buonocore, the publisher. I wanted to go in a different direction with this, though, because you've been on how many podcasts? Like, can you even name the last 4 or 5 podcasts you've been on? You're on all these things.
573. No, I'm only kidding. I have no idea how many. I mean, the point of me being on it is there's obviously a method to my madness, right? I mean, sure. First of all, the whole social thing is, plays into it. I genuinely like people. Some people don't. I genuinely like people. I genuinely like talking to people. I genuinely like meeting people. So I want to interact with you.
So you said before on Board Games Insider that this kind of stuck with me because you had an episode a couple months ago where you were talking about, I guess, fan negativity, so to speak, sometimes against the games, and how, like in forums and all this other stuff, that sometimes a gamer can get so passionate about their games that they create this kind of dichotomy between the player and the publisher, where they're the ones that are, playing the games and enjoying the games. You guys are the ones that are trying to take all our money. Or whatever they're trying to do. So, and then you said it, the way you said it was like, okay, people don't realize that we're geeks too. And Ignace was like, yes, I am a geek too. So I thought it would be fun to just kind of like, geek out, and talk about some geeky stuff.
I'm all about doing the geek. Let's do it. No, because I literally, like, that is my, that is my next passion. Like I said, beer certainly is, and I'm a huge craft beer fan, so I go all over the place looking for new and great beers, and I log them in like a real uber geek onto an app called Untapped. But if I'm not doing like that, because obviously you can only do so much of that, and probably not too much during the weeknight, I sit around and I watch all of the geek TV shows out there, all the superhero shows. Everything. I digest all of it. Arrow, Flash, Marvel's Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Everything I get my hands on, I'm watching that. I have the sci-fi shows like Dark Matter and Killjoys, and I just can't stop, getting into more geeky things is really what it comes down to. And geeky to me is like the, the superhero fantasy, all of that. That's where my level of geekdom is, in that genre.
Oh, we will get to all that stuff in just a bit. But what I wanted to do, because I think your number one game is War of the Ring, correct?
Ah, you've done some homework. Yes,
I've done a little bit of homework, and
it's
Anthony
my number
is,
one game.
And Anthony's it's pretty high up there, right, Anthony?
For me, yeah, right up there at the top too. So
right up there at the top. So we haven't covered War of the Ring on this podcast, so let's cover War of the Ring like geeks.
Okay.
We're not going to review it. We're going to review it and say it's awesome. There you go.
It's awesome.
But I wanted to share a little bit and just like talk about, just enjoy ourselves and talk about this awesome game. So Anthony, you're going to run through a little bit of what is on the table. War of the Ring is what?
Yes. So for everybody out there, because we haven't talked about it on this podcast, War of the Ring is the Lord of the Rings, the entire saga as a board game. There you go. You got the Free Peoples and the Shadow Armies facing off against each other. It's like the ultimate asymmetrical board game. And if you're the Free Peoples, you are trying to get all the different Free People nations to actually take up arms against Sauron, either by persuading them or waiting for Sauron to make them angry, and then get that ring to Mordor and destroy it. So there's kind of a hidden movement element to that. If you're Sauron and the forces of Sauron, you are trying to win by military victory or to capture the hobbits and find the ring. So the game it's an epic experience. I mean, it's like, I guess it depends on who you're playing with, but anywhere between 2 and 5 hours. And it says 2 to 4 on the box, but it's one side versus another. And there just happens to be multiple different bits and pieces of factions you can play as. But yeah, there's so much cool stuff going on in this game. You've got the unique action dice and the dice corresponding to different types of actions. The cards, the event cards that you can draw, they're going to have all these different pieces of the story in them. All the different members of the Fellowship kind of come into the game as you go along. And then at a certain point, you just have dozens of figures on the board, and you're trying to manage all this and outmaneuver your opponent, whether you're hiding the hobbits as you move them down towards Mordor, if you're the Free Peoples, or if you're just trying to take over as many cities as you can and just destroy everything if you're the Shadow Armies. So it's I mean, this is a fantastic game. It's one of those games that I don't get to play nearly as much as I want to, but it's like on that list where I'm like, I have to get this out at least, once every convention season, if not more. So it's way up there on the list for me.
Anthony, I just got geek chills listening to you talk about it.
Yes.
It's so, yeah, I mean, everything you said is so true. I mean, you just feel like you are reliving the Lord of the Rings every time you play the game. Now, obviously, the game still has to be balanced completely, and it is, and that's a very important point to bring out. So the bad guys, the shadow player or players, are going to win just as many times, hopefully, as the free people player or players. But, if you can, so as long as you can deal with the fact that this is not going to be a true retelling, it is a truly thematic telling of the way the Lord of the Rings could have gone, depending on what happened in the world, in Tolkien's world. And I think it is truly one of the it's one of the pinnacle of game designs, because every game I ever play, it comes down to the final move, that final set of dice. Both players roll the dice, and it's their action selection dice, custom dice. You roll them, and during that last turn, either Frodo's going to dunk the ring in Mount Doom, winning it for the free peoples, or Frodo's going to get corrupted by the ring, and the shadow player is going to win, or the shadow player is going to take over the 10th point in strongholds on the map, and the shadow player is going to win. So there's more ways for the shadow player to win. It's a little more limited for the free peoples, but the game is so balanced that it happens and it comes out right on that last set of dice every turn. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had the same thought. Like, how is it every single time that you're both standing up, like waiting on those last moves, like every single time you play the game? It's brilliant. It
is absolutely brilliant. I've met the designers of the game, and I'm totally fanboy all over them when I meet them, because they're great guys, and they have done a service to gaming and to that IP by creating that game. If maybe you know, Jason, because you did your research, I own the collector's edition of that game. That was the one that came out, by Fantasy Flight and Ares Games, when they had the first edition of the game. They brought out the collector's edition with all the painted figs. It's in this wooden box that looks like you look like a hobbit when you're holding it, because the box is like 3 feet long and stuff like that. It looks like a book. It's so cool. And I don't get to play it nearly as much because I just have X amount of gaming time to give, and I can't do that kind of game very often. So I have not played it, I have to say, in about a year and a half at this point. But as soon as I get an opportunity, it's coming back out on the table, because I love that game.
Speaking of not being able to get it out so often, so a fan named Kitch felt the same way and developed one of the most intimidating solo bots you'll ever see for a non-war game. It is actually a 20-page flowchart that animates a shadow figure, and people love it, and you actually can play this game solo. I don't know if you guys would ever actually do that, but it's there.
I've never heard this. So there's somebody created a way to run the game system?
Yeah, to run the shadow. It's called the Queller bot, and we're going to include a link in the show notes, but it's a giant spreadsheet. And like you said, solo mode is an opportunity to learn a game and learn the strat of a game. So people have been really like hammering down, like, okay, this is the strategy. This is what the bot does when the shadow does. So when I'm going to play, I'm going to do this what the shadow does, and all this kind of stuff. I thought it was like, I'm looking at it. I've only played the game once, and I think somebody was playing the game for me because I was completely overwhelmed by all the cards and stuff. But I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I'm looking at this bot going, oh my God, I can't wait to get into this. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So actually, do you have a criticism? If you had to criticize your Mona Lisa masterpiece, I have one in mind that I want to ask you about. But before I even get there, we're just at a bar just drinking, so you can just say whatever you want.
So we're just hanging out here,
We're just hanging out. Is there something that like if you wanted to kind of tinker under the hood and kind of change something up, would there be anything there?
With War of the Ring, is there anything there? Is that you saying?
Yeah. Is there anything that you would want to change or like that? It's like, yeah.
The only thing that I can, that comes to mind is not a criticism. It's just that, they sped the game up, so to speak. Well, you start in Rivendell, right? So there's none of that beginning of the game where, the hobbits are just this, lovely people that get visited by their friend Gandalf. So you don't get that beginning feeling. You start with the Council of Elrond essentially in the game, and
Right.
and you are thrown into the thick of things. Well, that's sort of what a game needs to do. You can't just chill out with your ale at the tavern. You have to really get into the game. So I mean, it doesn't tell every part of the book, I guess, is the only thing I can say. But I know I don't have any other true criticisms of the game. I mean, maybe I can add in that not every strategy that one could imagine by looking at the board will come into play, can really realistically come into play. For instance, it's really hard to get a victory with the Corsairs, like if the shadow player tries to bring the Corsairs up the coast and go after the Grey Havens, right? That's a really hard thing, and I've never seen it happen. But I would like to. I'd like to try it sometime, and I have tried it. So little things like that, that you see it there on the board, that maybe you could do it, but I've never succeeded in doing it. So there's my criticism.
It's funny you mentioned kind of the start of the game, because this is the one that I was thinking of. So when Anthony was describing the game, talking about like the different factions. So when you're the Shadow, you start off at quote unquote war. And so you could just continue, like, there's a track on the side of the board, and it tracks whether you're either, still kind of mustering your forces, or if you're quote unquote at war. If you're at war, you can call up new troops, you can move, you can do all this stuff, right?
Right.
The free peoples do not start at war. Matter of fact, it takes some time. Like, you have to program your action dice to go down the track, down the track, down the track. Right. And until then, you can't muster your forces and do whatever. So I'm looking at the board going, I'm getting attacked. Why can't I muster my forces? They're like, nope, you can't do it. I'm like, why not? I'm getting attacked. What am I going to do? So I was looking online for stuff like that, and I noticed that Mr. Sam Healy from the Dice Tower is like, not everybody starts at war. This game is, I'm done with this game. Like, wow.
Oh,
it wasn't quite that bad, but like every time he mentions the War of the Ring, he mentions, why doesn't everybody start at war? It's like, oh, I kind of get that now.
But it is really part of the thematic nature of the game. Nobody is at war when that game starts. I mean, the only faction at war, right? The Shadow player is at war. He's doing everything possible. The Shadow, Sauron, is bringing everybody to war. His mindset is war. The elves don't want to be at war. The dwarves don't want to be at war. The humans don't want to be at war. They hate each other. All those factions hate each other to begin with. So they're just trying to all stay out of it, stay neutral almost, until bad starts happening. And then, oh, crap, we better start mustering. We better start getting things together. So I get it completely, and it certainly balances the game out too. Hey, you could also mention that every time a Shadow a unit gets destroyed, it just comes back. Crunch away, we'll make more. Right? The orcs, they just keep reproducing. When the humans die, and even when the elves die, they just go away. And the dwarves, they just go away. So that's, sort of the attrition in the way that you have to, husband your forces as the Free People's player. Make sure you're okay with the acceptable losses to get through the bad parts, because the Shadow player is just going to keep coming at you and coming at you.
You're okay with that, right, Anthony? You don't care about the whole war at war or whatever.
No, it's great. It's thematic. It feels, all comes back to the whole thing. Like, you feel like you're playing Lord of the Rings. So
and
it doesn't really bother me.
And you have to deal with that. That's part of the nature of the game. It is a war game. Of course, it is a war game, but it's a war game that has limitations. Think about, World War II, the U.S. would not enter the war, we were just going to stay out of the war. Well, all of a sudden, bad stuff started happening. Like, we got attacked on U.S. soil in the Pacific. Now we enter the war. So it's that same kind of thing. Tolkien is criticize, not the right word, but people say that, the entire Lord of the Rings is an allegory for the East versus the West, and he specifically said it has nothing to do with that, and that he threw that out in a very big forward to one of the later printings of the Lord of the Rings, which is just an interesting thing, but the books do have that, and the game does have that whole idea of, there's an inertia to change the mindset of good peoples to simply say, I am now going to throw good peoples to die, for this cause, to get rid of the bad people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very big philosophical, item right there.
Yeah, this got deep.
Oh, it got deep quick. Buonocore is deep.
Oh my goodness. We're going to turn this into the philosophy podcast.
There you go.
I was a philosophy major in college, so let's do it. No, I won't do it to you.
It is a deep game. It's a deep game. It's a deep book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got. I am. You talk about being such a complete nerd for things, but I am a ridiculously big Tolkien nerd. I've read the Silmarillion as many times as I've read the Lord of the Rings, and it's.
You lie. No one has done that.
I absolutely have. And when I read the Silmarillion, I read it with like a guide next to me, a book. So like I'll read something, I'll say, oh, what does that mean? What is that? What is he talking about? Then I'll go into the guide and I'll say, oh yeah, that's that thing. That's that guy or that thing. I absolutely have. I've read both of them about the same number of times, 3-4 times each. I just can't get enough of the whole world that he created. I mean, he just loved the idea of like sort of it was a retelling of Earth history. It's an alternate telling. It's not, obviously, some people said like, he believed it really happened. No. He took some weird fantasy concepts and said, this is how things could have developed, not that it really did happen like that. So I'm a nerd, dude. I'm a nerd and I love it.
All right. Have we geeked out about Lord of the Rings enough? Are we sufficient with that, or do we have any more deep thoughts? I keep on going. I don't care.
I think we went pretty deep.
I think we're good. I wanted to end the interview, and by the way, thank you for taking so much time. This has been really fun. So I wanted to end the interview with a callback to a podcast that I know you've been on because I listened to it, Ludology, and we are going to do a geek lightning round to begin.
The lightning round.
Pew pew.
Every time I'm on, I tell Engelstein, you got to get rid of that thing. That's great.
It's so good.
Oh, he's cute. He's the best. Him and Gil are just a hoot.
It's a really fun
good
podcast.
New Jersey boys. They're my good friends back from New Jersey. I miss them very much.
Good friends from Jersey.
Jersey guys.
There you go. All right, so I'm going to ask you a couple of geek questions. You've listed all those geek IPs before. What is number one on the geek IP list for you?
I mean, it really has got to be all of Tolkien, I guess. But since we talk so much about that, let's go right to Game of Thrones.
Oh no, you are not a Game of Thrones fan.
Oh, dude, I'm so.
Oh, dude, I'm stopping the questions right now. So, okay. So I'm actually going to cut the lightning a little bit short. We did a whole section on Game of Thrones that I'm going to put on the other side of the spoiler wall. A little bit of a diversion, but a lot of spoilers in that. So beware if you listen beyond the credits. I will ask my last question though, because a lot of people are going to want to know.
Okay.
Okay. If a gamer wants to buy you a beer out of the goodness of their heart, or if a designer wants to ensure a successful pitch for his game, what kind of beer should he buy for you?
Okay.
Or she?
Okay. That's great. Well, okay.
Are you an IPA man? Are you a summer ale man? What do we got?
Well, number one, it's got to be a craft brew, right? So it's none of this mainstream crap, right? So it's got to be something, local beers always get big pluses, and now being in Florida, man, I've been drinking my way through the great local beers of Florida, which is kind of cool. But picking a style is just really hard because I love them all, or I love all the styles. The bigger the beer, the better, and big doesn't necessarily mean in alcohol. Big just means in flavor. But certainly, the double IPAs, which are both big in flavor and in alcohol. Stouts in general have traditionally been my favorites overall. So there is the Imperial Stout, of course, which is higher in alcohol. The Belgian ales, huge amounts of flavor. So overall, if you want to pick Buonocore a good beer, pick the biggest, most aggressive beer out there. That'll be the right one.
That'll do it.
That'll be the right one. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen. This has been a lot of fun. Hopefully this a little bit of a different vibe from the other podcasts that you've been on.
Oh, definitely. Jason and Anthony, thank you so much. This is really, really cool. I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to me act like an idiot geek for an hour. This is really cool.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Right.
And that is going to do it for another episode of Every Night is Game Night. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to Stephen Buonocore of Stronghold Games for hanging out. Always trying a little bit of different structure. So that first part of the episode, we talked about the Stronghold games that we really enjoy. Second part, just, really letting our hair down. No, we were not taking any adult beverages. We were just high on life, as they say, and really having a good time. So like we said in the episode, we did get into a pretty chunky, spoilerific Game of Thrones, the TV show, which at this point is the ahead of the books, spoiler discussion, theory crafting, who's going to win, who's going to lose. So if you don't want to hear any of that, this is your last spoiler warning. Please turn this off at the music so that we don't spoil you. But if you do want to get spoiled and you want to hear a bunch of geeks talking about Game of Thrones, please go ahead and tune in for that. So we invite you to continue the conversation, continue having fun with us. Hit us up on the Twitter, ENGN_podcast. You can find us lurking around on Facebook, Solo Gamers Group, the Board Game Group, all sorts of places. On BGG, you can find us on our website, BoardGamersAnonymous.com, or the sister website, everynightisgamenight.com. We're both allied podcasts. Anthony hops between the two and really has a great time doing so. One last favor. Yes, I'm going to ask for this every single time. Please give us a rating. Hit us up on SoundCloud, on Apple Store, wherever you can give us 5 stars or however many stars you think we deserve. Really helps us get the notoriety going. So, the more ratings, the merrier. Thank you so much for all the people who have done so far. And as we do at the end of every single episode, we are going to remind you to grab a solo game off of that shelf and make every night a game night. And oh yeah, watch out for those spoilers.
What happened? Is that good or bad?
That's my jam. I'll talk about theories and.
I know exactly how it's playing out. I got it all written for them. I think they came to me to write it. No, but no, I'm a huge fan. Now, and the funny thing is, I never read the books, so my knowledge is 100% from the amazing job. And I think I've said this to friends and on at least a couple of podcasts that I think the Game of Thrones is probably the single greatest piece of television ever. They have pumped so much money into it, and they have done such a great job being very close to the source material. They did a great job with it from what I heard, since I didn't read it, but people did. And now, of course, since Martin is I don't know what you want to call the guy. He's just like sitting on the beach in Florida, maybe doing nothing. He doesn't. He's done. He's just checked out. He's counting his money, I guess. Since he doesn't want to write it, now they've got all these HBO writers who are going to finish it up for him in the way they want to, and have a great time with it. So I know how it's going to end. Do you?
All I know is Jon Snow is a dummy. And the greatest show on earth cannot have a main character who is so dumb. I don't want to get into spoilers.
So wait, so
it's
you think
really bad?
You think, well, I don't know. I don't really know what's happening, of course. And I don't even read speculation on the internet. I just did some figuring out on my own and, and speculation with friends and stuff like that into how I think it's going to happen and what I think it's going to end up as. And we already know a lot of the ending.
All right, you're speculating. This is not spoilers. This is speculation. What's going to happen? Is Dany going to be on a throne? Is or John's going to be on the throne? Who's going to be on the throne?
So overall, what's going to happen is we know that Dany is, of course, pure Targaryen blood. We now know that Jon is Targaryen blood, right? He's Targaryen. Jon Snow is Targaryen.
Yes, we know
and of course, incest in this world is like, normal. Okay. So they are, of course, going to get together. They just did. They're going to get together, and they are probably going to rule the United Seven Kingdoms as king and queen. And they've had this kind of power struggle thing. I think that they will kind of share the entire thing together in a happy ending. I've heard people say that this show never ends in a happy ending, but I think on some level that's the happy ending, that they're both going to rule together and bring peace to the Seven Kingdoms. But there's another piece of this whole puzzle. One more piece. What's the sigil of House Targaryen?
Three-headed dragon.
The three-headed dragon. Who are the three heads on that dragon?
Dany, Jon, and Tyrion.
Dany, Jon, and Tyrion, right?
Tyrion, yep.
He is Targaryen. You know that?
I have an inkling.
What's that? You have an inkling? Yeah, so he is also Targaryen. And the hints that we've had there are, number one,
he can pet the dragons.
He can pet the dragons. That's the biggest hint of all. The single biggest hint that he could come close to the dragons, and they don't hate him. They don't want to kill him and eat him. Very tasty little morsel. And also, his father, air quotes, said, "You are no son of mine." He hated him specifically. So there was somehow he is begot of a Targaryen. And I don't know exactly how that happened. I've heard a little bit of speculation, but I've forgotten it since then. But that's a three-headed dragon right there. And he is the single character that truly has been through the entire series. I mean, even Jon is he's been there the whole time, and so is Dany and Jon have been there the whole time. But he has been that kind of like linking pin the entire time for all of the characters, including the two of them. So there's the three-headed dragon. They will all be there together. The only three people that are guaranteed to be alive at the end, I believe, are those three people. And we'll have a quote-unquote happy ending with Jon and Dany on the throne.
So if people are confused as to how Tyrion can be a Targaryen, the basic theory is that the Mad King Aerys was, Mad King, and Tywin was his hand. The reason people think Tywin left because of some sort of affronted slight or, some honor. The real reason, quote unquote, that Tywin left was because Aerys was in love with Tywin's wife.
Right.
And that there was a rumor that Aerys raped Tywin's wife. And that's why, not because he was a dwarf, but Tywin always knew that he was the bastard child of the Mad King.
There you go.
So if you didn't know, then now you know. And I am definitely putting this after all the music. This is going to happen. I'm walling this off.
This is not spoiler. It's complete speculation.
I'm putting this after the music anyway. I'm not even going to open myself to the criticism.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Say that you can say we geeked out on speculation. So if you don't want to know anything or hear anything with only speculation, put it after the credits.
That's right. That's exactly right. Do you have Anthony? You've caught up with the show, right? You were. I think actually, me and you went back and forth after Jon went to kidnap that white in behind the wall. Like we were texting each other in Slack, going, "What am I watching?"
Yeah.
That's why it's not the best show.
I'm a long time fan. I read the books back like when they came out, and so I've been a big fan the whole time. And there's been moments. I'm like, what's happening now?